Hey y'all, Bria Lewis here, host of Epiphany, the podcast. We're gonna get right into it, y'all. If you're just getting here, which you should be because I just started the podcast, make sure you subscribe, share this episode with a friend. Today we will be discussing navigating grief. Um, yeah, let's get into it, guys. This time last year, well, this month last year, um, I experienced 4 deaths in the same week, and it changed my life forever. So while we are discussing grief, we are going to put a positive spin to it, to give you guys some context on a Monday in September of last year. I lost my uncle to cancer. On Saturday, I lost my dad to gun violence. On the day after, I lost a good family friend. Her name was Ronnie. She used to watch me when I was a little girl. And then the very next day after that, I lost my cousin to a heart attack. So me and grief, we go together at this point. But while grief and death and bad experiences such as these are inevitable, nobody really teaches us how to navigate through them. Nobody really teaches us how to cope with them. And so, being that I had a certain lifestyle prior to experiencing this level of grief, I had some really strong coping mechanisms already to help me process in a healthy way. And so I want to share some of those, as well as what you can do if you are experiencing grief, what to do when you do come across the experience of grief. And I want to share some of the things that my dad taught me while he was here that I will carry with me forever. So yeah, first of all, I want to say that y'all, death is a business, and it's a business that's making bank, and ain't nobody really talking about it. And it blows my mind because y'all, it costs money, a lot of money, to die. It costs a lot of money to live, but it really costs a lot of money to die. Okay, and so the first 2 weeks post all of these deaths, we couldn't really, my family and I couldn't get straight into grieving. We had to get straight into and on top of business. You gotta pay to dig a hole in the ground. You gotta pay to put a vault inside of that hole in the ground. You have to pay in order to put a casket inside of that vault inside of the ground. And then you got to pay for a ceremony or service in order for somebody to be buried into the ground. And then you have to pay fees outside for standing around it and it being all nice, so everybody huddled up looking at the casket. And then you got to pay for the casket. And then you got to pay for the covering up of the casket to, so people ain't just walking and dipping into the ground. So, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And on top of that, oftentimes there is family drama to add onto the little sprinkle of finances that you have to take care of, right? And on top of the family drama, there's levels of entitlement that you may have to deal with. And then on top of that, you still got regular life going on. Like, you still got to show up to work. You still got to put gas in the tank. You still got to pay the bill. Y'all, it's a lot. It's a lot. Like, life don't stop. And I remember feeling like, bruh, like, what do you mean life doesn't stop? Like, my whole world just caved in, right? So I have always attended counseling, childhood to adult. Well, okay, so I started counseling at the age of 19. I'll get into why in another episode, but at the age of 19, I began counseling, and I was consistent until I was about 21, and then I took a pause, and then I picked it back up when I was 22, right? And now I am 27 years old, and so I've been in counseling for right under a decade, and it's been very transformative, and it's been a go-to for me to assist with healing, but also just maintenance, right? So that was one of my healthy ways of coping. in the midst of my grief, my weekly counseling sessions, and I attend a faith-based counseling service who also has support groups. So that was one of my ways. Another way was meditation, yoga, moving my body, eating well. I am plant-based or versatile in the diet. So whichever you prefer, however you want to say it. But you know what I noticed about these different passings that occurred over this such a short time frame was I didn't think I was a possessive person until I lost my parent. I didn't think I felt entitled to any person until they were no longer here. I have lost a good friend in the past, and that was really tough to deal with, but it was nothing like losing my father. And even, you know, the close deaths the same week, where it was nothing like the death of my father. So, whoo, baby, it's tough. It's tough, and there's no right way or wrong way to go about grief. For some people, it takes them months. For some people, it takes them years. For some people, they just can't function. Like, it's hard. It's challenging, right? But through the challenges, if you have great coping habits and you have an amazing support system, then you make it through, and you make it through with grace, and you're able to process some of the lessons that are within it. And even through the pain, you still get to the light at the end of the tunnel, which is joy, because they friends. Grief, pain, joy, happiness, they friends. They some funny looking friends, but they friends, you know? So you just have to really give yourself a certain level of grace to see it through. And you can't attach yourself to a finish line or a finish date of, I remember I'm releasing control, and I realized in the sense of when I did not have that, what was going on was I was like on the phone with my counselor, like, girl, what you mean that the grief period is 2 years? I don't got time to be trying to be sad for 2 years. Like, and my counselor was like, what you mean you don't got time? What do you have time for? And I think it's wild how we really try to hold a grip on our emotions, and we try to tell ourselves what we not gonna do. Like, don't you come in here crying, don't you come in here being sad all day. But if that's just how you feel, you have to allow yourself to feel so you can heal. And that is my first offering, is you have to feel so you can heal. All of the suppressed emotions, the masking, you have to set yourself free from that. That way you're not bonded with your grief, but you can experience grief and still be okay. I hope that is delivered well for somebody to soak in, but you don't want to dwell in it. You still want to be like, you know what, I cried half the day today, but when I went through that photo album, I just couldn't help but crack my side laughing, because why were you that way while you were here? You know, my dad, I specifically remember on that Monday when my uncle transitioned, my dad said, man, that's really sad, you know, that Uncle Ernest is gone. But why is it that Black people always dress in black, all black, when people pass away? Like, this shit depressing. Like, he straight up said, like, this shit is depressing. And he was like, Stank, when I leave, like, I don't want all of that black. Like, don't let them have my church blacked out. And so that was nothing but just divine favor to even have that conversation with my dad. And, you know, of course, you wouldn't have been able to guess that you would have a conversation like that. And then later on that weekend, you know, God called him home. But immediately when we started planning and reaching out to what felt like thousands of family members, but I'm sure it was like a couple hundred of people, just letting them know, hey, don't wear no black up in here. For my daddy pop up out that gasket and be like, what y'all got going on? Because we not here to be sad. This is a life celebration. And my father's birthday is September 22nd, which is today, which is why I'm recording today and launching this podcast today. But he was not playing that sad shit. He was like, I don't want to hear no slow music, no nothing. He like, I don't care. I know I'm gonna be gone in the physical, but I'm gonna be there in spirit, and I don't want to hear none of that. Like, y'all can cry and be sad I'm gone, but I don't want to hear none of that. So yeah, I made sure we purpled that church out. That is his favorite color, and we gave him a beautiful memorial today. And we're gonna keep on celebrating him because that's what he wanted. Okay. So yeah, within grief, there are a lot of emotional waves. One week you could be perfectly fine, and the very next you could just not be okay. Like, it could be difficult to be getting out of bed. It could feel like an accomplishment even to get out of the bed, to brush your teeth, to shower. And sometimes it's like the things that you would just do on your regular could feel so heavy, so difficult. I remember having a panic attack early in my grief period. I want to say it was like month 1. So we did all of that planning and preparing for the service and the burial within those first 2 weeks, and then right after I was back at work. And so everybody was like, don't you think it's a little early? And I'm like, girl, probably, but these bills is still rolling. So I got to get back in motion. And that's his own thing, But with those emotional waves, you do still have to have that stillness, even though you do have to get back to some form of responsibility that you're called to. You can't be naive to like, yeah, I have stuff to do, but you also just have to sit still with you and what you feel and process your new reality. I saw a clip on social media a while back that pretty much was saying, hey, my friend, she was navigating grief, and while we were in conversation, she kept mentioning, I'm just trying to get back to myself. I'm just trying to get back to the old me. And she was like, well, that's the problem, girl. You're trying to get back to the old you, and the old you is gone, because the old you is the person with that still had the person that transitioned. Like, they were still here. That is the old you. Now you have to figure out who you are without this person. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of intentionality in order to not just process a transition of someone, but to process several of them at the same time. And you still try to keep kicking like you've been kicking. And baby, them kicks get real. It's slow motion. I don't know if y'all ever had a dream where you were literally like trying to punch and it was going so slow and it just upset you. And that's how I felt, because my family is full of busybodies. Like, we're always serving, we're always working, we're always doing something productive. And so when tragedy arises, you halt, and it irks your nerves that you're coming to a halt, because you're so used to staying steadfast to something, so used to moving around, so used to showing up for other people. And when you don't have the emotional capacity to do that, you have to sit still. You have to be obedient and just take a pause, take a break. And our breaks are like, all right, girl, you caught your 30 minutes, you caught your hour. But no, this break in tragedy is different. It may be months. And so there are going to be times where there are people around you, they're not going to be able to tolerate you. You can barely tolerate you, and you don't know how to introduce them to this new version of yourself, because you just figured out that there's a new person emerging. And that's okay, because that means that's not the person that's supposed to be around you. Period. Because those, what I call chameleon friends, the chameleon family, the people that blend into every scenario, y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, you got people who you can put in every category, and you got people that only fit into certain categories. But at the end of the day, when you're facing tragedy, and you're facing true life change, and you are in the depths of grief, you have to be around those chameleon people, those people who are selfless, those people who are loving, those people who are continuously checking on you, because you need them. People say they want those people around them, but no, this is a time where you need them. And so if you have a support system that is lacking certain quality character traits, if you ain't around them, you need to get around them. And if they are not that, it's either not the time for them to be there, or they're not supposed to be in your life, period. Because grief is no joke. It's no joke. I'm talking about, especially if you're like me and you're a high functioning person. Like when I went back to work, I went back to work operating as if I were fully back in the old body. But the truth is, when my dad died, a lot of me died too. And I had my own rebirth, and I realized a lot of things just no longer serve me. And this happens a lot, you know, in transition. There were certain family members where I'm like, oh, well, you didn't really show your ass now. Bye-bye, blocked. You know, and that's okay. That's okay, because that is a part of birthing the version of you that is of a higher self. Because you got to think about the emotions that grief brings. It's usually softness and vulnerability. So if you can't thrive while you're soft and vulnerable around someone, then that tells you pretty much everything that it is that you need to know. And I think what's really cool about my situation and my dad is he told us, by us I mean my mom, my little brother, everything that we could expect after he was no longer here. He prepared us in every way possible. That is such a big blessing, because I know a lot of people do not have that, or they just weren't extended that luxury. As random as his death felt, it's like he had an understanding of what the business that I was talking about earlier in the episode that came with death. And, you know, he was able to prepare us. He prepared us mentally. Most people can't prepare you for their death. This man did it in the best way that he could. And for that, I am grateful. And for experiencing him, his level of servitude, masculinity, selflessness, his spirit of giving, I could just go on and on. Like that, one of one. My dad was one of one. And everyone around him, I mean, closely knitted to him, very strong-minded people. And my dad was a strong advocate for keeping it real, keeping it raw, and not sugarcoating shit. And I just think we need a little bit more of that in this world. Another tip that I can give you guys for navigating grief: if you are usually known to be the strong friend or the go-to friend, yeah, get ready for that to shift, because your capacity level is going to change. Okay, it's going to change. You gonna need some strong friends that you can lean on this go round, because you ain't gonna have it in you. You ain't gonna have it in you. This year, this is the first full year without my dad, and I can honestly say I have never cried so much. And it's not because of the obvious, like his physicality is no longer, but it's really because death does something internally to soften you in a way that nothing else really can. And you can either choose to fight against it, or you can fight with it. And what I did was I chose to fight with it, because I found more strength there, right? So if you have friends who they fight against their emotions instead of facing them, I'm telling you right now, y'all not gonna make it. They not gonna make it as your friend, because you need a place to go and be real and soft and express in the most naked way that you absolutely can, without masking, without trying to fold into your new reality. And you need to be able to just say, I don't have it in me today, and it be okay. and you can't show up. It needs to be okay for you to just be, and it needs to be okay for you to just be you. You alone have to be enough for you to be able to cohabitate, for you to be able to mesh well with who is around you, because again, it's hard. I hope I'm articulating this very well for you guys. I'm just trying to take myself back through the timeline of grief, which kind of flows into one another, because you don't get to choose which days you're gonna be sad. You don't get to choose which days that you're not going to be triggered. You know, especially if, like, you know, like in my situation, my dad left to gun violence, and you don't just wake up and the anger is gone. You don't just wake up okay. And the days that you do, you have to accept that anytime during your day it could resurface. You know, I could see a purple old school truck ride by and I'm like, what's up, Pops? And then another day I could be like, a purple car drove by. My God. You know, it's different every single day, and you have to take it an hour at a time. Not a day at a time, an hour at a time. So yeah, and also you will be, through your grief, you will be imperfect in spaces where you are usually flawless. Flawless. The areas where you're like, this is my space, you're gonna be like, y'all not trying to put me in this box, are y'all? Because you're rebirthing. You're figuring out your new self, and it just certain stuff that's just not gonna go no more. And in some spaces, it's your job. It could be your job. It could be your family dynamic. It could be a lot. And like I said, those chameleon people, they not going nowhere, you know? But sometimes we don't get to choose the chameleon people. And sometimes we don't recognize that the people we thought were chameleon people ain't chameleon people until we go through something as heavy as the grief. And so, you know, you could go to work on time every day, perform very well. I'm talking about like all the dots dotted and all the T's is crossed. And then when grief happened, you could be like, okay, I think I'm okay. I'm gonna be all right today. I'm gonna make this money. I'm gonna state my affirmations. I'm gonna say my prayer, and I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna fight the good fight, and I'm gonna keep showing up. And girl, you go back and check and see if them dots and them T's is crossed and them T's is dotted in them whatever else is all messed up. You thinking you to perform your best of your ability, but in reality, your best sucks. Your best can suck during grief because you have been emotionally, mentally, even intellectually, psychologically impacted. Yeah, it's heavy. It's real heavy. And being a high functioning person, everybody can think you carrying it so well, so beautifully, and so lightly, but really, but really, it's not just heavy, but you're waving above water, asking somebody, please grab my hand, but only the Lord can do that. It's really hard. But what I can say is, like when I said that grief, pain, happiness, and joy go together, what I meant was these are the things that emerge after the healing, the feeling, the intentionality, the community building, the healthy coping habits. The things that emerge from that look nothing look nothing like what you're actually in. It actually looks the exact opposite. It's light, it's love, it's thriving, it is alive, it is well, it is passion, it's everything. It's everything that's good. And for me, everything that is good that has emerged from this experience, the reason it is nothing short of amazing is because it has brought me closer to God. And that is all this life experience is really truly for, is to continuously bring you closer to God. And if I may be transparent, I had strayed, not only did I stray away from God and religion, but I had also strayed away from divine connectivity in the sense of intentional prayers, reading the Bible, the deeper things. And it took for my dad to no longer be here for me to realign with the source, because I remember getting off of work after, I remember my mom calling me while I was at work the day of my dad's transition, and she said, come to grandma's house, I'll see you in a minute, click. And I'm like, girl, I'm at work, what you got going on? And I remember calling back, and I was like, I'm at work, like, and she was like, just come over here now, click. And I'm like, what? Okay. So, I tell my manager I have to go, and on my ride to my grandma's, God told me my dad was no longer here. And I'm like, wait, what? Why? I don't get it. My dad drove real crazy, y'all, so I thought he had gotten into a bad car accident. But then I'm like, what are the odds of him getting in a car accident at my grandma's house? So then the rest of my drive there was really like, okay, well, how? How did it happen? Or what specifically happened? Because certain things just, it didn't make sense. And so from that time period, fast forwarding to me returning back to work, there's no fog in that, because I just kept asking why. Sometimes it's like the why, don't ask why, that's not good, but me asking why was really good, because I gained so much clarity on a day-to-day basis by trying to figure out, why is this my experience? Or what you mean my dad? Bria Lewis, my dad? Like, there was a certain level of entitlement that I even had for, in regards to my own dad. Like, what you mean you took my dad? Like, this my daddy. Huh? The confusion, the debate with God, it's all become more clear over time. And I'm not going to say I fully get it, but I am fully accepting the reality. And it's a beautiful place to get to, because it is a revelation of, I have full trust in God. Just like I said, driving there, when I didn't understand why God had called him home, what felt to me was early. It felt early, because he ain't wrinkled up. He ain't got enough gray hairs yet, and he was only 55. So it's okay. But thank you, God, for the amount of time that I did get with him, because some people didn't grow up with a dad at all. I had to resort back to gratitude, because I can't be naive to the fact that I have had an experience that a lot of people would die for, but to keep asking God why was to keep getting an answer from God, to keep getting responses to God. Even asking my dad, like, why right now? Really? But what would have been a better time? God be like, well, you tell me what you think would have been a better time. Like, there was no good time for that. There's no good time for tragedy, because it's never going to feel good. You don't get to choose. It wouldn't have been better if it would have happened this way or that way. And that is what my dad was saying in regards to the death that had happened earlier in the week. We don't get to choose. So therefore, we have to trust and find a way to navigate. So I have had a lot of people reach out to me, ask me, girl, how do you do it? How do you even get out of bed? You still posting, like smiling, you still have so much joy in your heart. It's almost like you have more joy in your heart. And I'm like, y'all, I really gained so much ancestral guidance from my father since he has transitioned, when I absolutely need to not just look at pictures, and I need a more clear vision of my dad. I ask, hey, look now, I ask him. Hey, I ain't seen you smile in a minute now. What you doing up there or around there or in the air? You know, and my dad would straight up come to me in a dream just to be like, and I am so full from that, because that is not something that we have really learned in the midst of grief. You still can call out to your ancestors. You can still ask them in-depth questions. Me and my dad were working on business projects before his transition, and when he left, I was like, bruh, well, what you want me to do? Now I feel stuck. Like, I'm supposed to do this on my own now? And he like, nah, I'm still here. Like, straight up in my dream. Like, nah, you still finna do it, and we actually doing it together. I'm just on a different side. Like, full blown out conversations in my dreams. And those are the type of gifts that you gain through the grief, through seeking, through your curiosity, and through your conversations with God. You can, if through being obedient, you can gain a certain level of visions, guidance, confirmations, ways to communicate with your loved ones while they are on the other side. And sometimes you're not gonna have full understanding, but you just got to be grateful for that. And so that's what I hold on to in my heart, along with the memories, along with the pictures, and that's that. So I want to share some of the lessons that my dad left with me, and some of the things that he is still teaching me. So one of the first things was, my dad told me growing up, if you want to be somebody, you need to get up by a certain time. So his message was, early bird gets the worm. I'm sure y'all have heard that before, but his go-to was feet hit the floor by 10. You getting up at 12, you playing about yourself, respectfully. In my dad's case, disrespectfully. So feet hit the floor at 10, and the first time that I asked him, I need you to send me a sign of some sort because I'm feeling really stuck. I don't know what to do next. He actually sent the sign to my mom. I didn't tell her that I had that conversation with my dad at all. She just straight up texted me, hey, your dad told me to tell you something. And I'm like, oh, you real funny. You gonna go to my mama and tell her, because you know at that point, then I gotta listen. Okay. So my mom texted me. She said, I don't know what is pertaining to or why he's saying this, because again, I didn't tell her, but that I had that conversation with him. But he said, tell Bria I said feet hit the floor at 8 a.m. And I was like, okay, I don't really understand how that's gonna help me for real. You know, you taught me feet hit the floor at 10 growing up, so I'm kind of confused. But y'all, I'm not going to give myself credit for fully being obedient, because I'm still working on mastering this 8 a.m. I'm a 9 a.m. type of gal. But the 2 weeks that I really just stuck with, listen, the 2 weeks that I stuck with it, I got so much done. And I was like, oh, that's what you're saying. You get a lot more done. 2 hours made a difference. So, because he was saying feet hit the floor by 8, but I was really getting up at 7. And like I said, I usually get up at 9. So those 2 hours, I was getting a lot more done. I felt a lot more productive during my day. And I finished my task way earlier. And so I was like, okay, I see what you mean there. Now I'm up now. Like, it's been months. I think now I've been up probably like 6:30, 7 at the latest, moving. I got things to do. And so message well received. But yeah, early bird gets the worm. That was one of the lessons. He also taught me serve and show up. And this is not something he told me, this was just his actions. Serve and show up. My dad was the type of person that helped everybody that he absolutely could. He donated his time, he donated his food, he donated his hands, he donated his services. He had multiple businesses that he served through, and a lot of people can say that my dad was present for them. Like if they couldn't call their own son or their own dad, they would call my dad, and they could depend on him to be there. So I take a lot of pride in showing up because I got that from him. And I encourage others to do the same, just because we need that more in today's society. Like we need the helping hand. You know, we shouldn't have the gimmick of it's hard to find good help. You know, it should be there, and I feel like it's an underrated blessing today, because even today, you know, we had a small memorial for him after church service, and a good friend of his went up and she said, like, Turkey, that was my dad's name, Turkey was that neighbor. Like, they don't make neighbors like that no more. Y'all know older folks, but you get the hint. Just a very present guy, very contagious energy and spirit. And so be the person that when you walk in the room, your energy hugs them before you get to reach your arms out. Yeah, that was my dad. That was Turkey. He also said, taught, and proved, a wife comes first in a husband's life right after God. A part of my dad's servitude was directly to my mom, and to grow up in a two-parent household, again, another blessing. Like to watch a man be fully present, fully protective over his wife. Need I not say more? Next lesson. Laugh. And dark humor is okay, y'all. Just follow me on Instagram, Bria X Lewis. If you don't already, if you're coming into the show, I only have one episode right now, but later on, if y'all go back and watch this episode, just go and follow me on Instagram, baby, because my daddy was a clown, okay, and I'm a clown, and his level of humor sometimes it was so funny that it wasn't funny. Like, one of the stories that I learned after his transition was he went to a party. Him and my mom went to a party, and there was a lady who walked in who was fairly heavy set, so much to the point where her ankles kind of weren't, how do you say it? I guess in balance with the amount of weight that she had on her upper body. And so she kind of had a little waddle to her. And so everybody's partying, having a good time. The DJ, you know, is revving it up, and everybody's dancing. And as she's, you know, as the lady is kind of waddling around the party, out of nowhere, she falls. Like, but I guess in a very amusing way, to the point where her feet slip from up underneath her and go into the air. And my dad decides to get on the microphone and say, she done busted her ass. Ooh, she done busted her ass. And my mom is so embarrassed because she's introverted, and my dad's the exact opposite. And everybody is like cracking their side laughing. But not everybody, but like people are like damn near finna blow their eyes out of socket trying to hold their laugh in. Because who told you to get up there and be that ignorant and make an announcement that somebody that failed at a party? But that's an example of him. For my experience, I remember there was a TV show that I used to watch when I was a little girl. It was called Hip Hop Harry, and my dad decided he gonna come in the living room and join and dance into the show. And there's like a little breakdance session closer to the end, and he decides he gonna get in the middle of the circle doing handstand and throw his back out of socket. So just a straight up clown. Just a straight up clown, and it's passed down to most of his kids in just the best way possible. We crack about the things that we crack up about things that we not really supposed to crack up about, and it's necessary. It's medicine for us. And even my little brother, I think, as we were planning the memorial this year, he was like, the mom was trying to get placements for what was going to go where, how we were going to set it up in the church. And my little brother goes, well, this could be a gift table. And my mama was like, ain't nobody bringing no gifts, boy. And I was like, who gonna open them up on his birthday? So, you have to laugh. Never stop laughing, never stop smiling, never stop just showing your teeth, even if they crooked. Like, I'm talking about like a hunched over, take off running, slap your knee type of laugh. Y'all know how black folks laugh and crack up? Like, that's how hard we need to be laughing while we on this earth, because it's not enough time. It's not enough moments, like, I love to laugh. You just gotta keep a light spirit. I always had a dad who laughed on the hard days, on the good days, on the ugly days. We was gonna find something to laugh about. And the last lesson that I can share with you guys, that he left me with, was get it popping then. And I kind of want to share what that means. So, I have a lot of goals. I have a lot of things that I want to accomplish in this life. And I also have a lot of ideas that just come to me just randomly. And I always like to share them with my dad or my mom, people who are close to me in general, not just to get their feedback, but to tell them what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to start this podcast. I'm going to be a realtor. I'm going to start a decent business. And my daddy would be like, well, get it popping then. So his message for that was, you need to put some action behind them words. Like, okay, it sounds good, but let's get it moving. There are a lot of things, a lot of ideas, I guess, that we come up with. We say we're going to do, and we kind of push it off, and we really don't get to the execution phase of it. We just stay stuck at the writing it down, rewriting it again, journaling about it, telling our friends about it. And we look for validation through just that expression, the verbal expression, but we don't put any action steps behind it. Like, when I told my friends, oh, I'm going to drop a podcast called Epiphany, they were very supportive of the podcast, but nobody validated the name of the podcast is lit. Like, oh, that's a good name. It's like sometimes when you're expressing your ideas, you want somebody to validate them. I don't need your validation. I was just excited about it. And so sometimes you got to be just excited about what you're about to do, but at the same time, express like, this is what I have done for it so far. If you're comfortable talking to that person about, what you're trying to accomplish. But yeah, I used to go to my daddy with all type of ideas of things that I wanted to do or that I was about to do. And or even giving him ideas for his own businesses, and he would be like, all right, Stank, well, let's get it popping then. Like, that's your flow, that's your lane, that's your area. So I would be trying to advance his social media, and he would be like, well, I don't know how to work none of that shit, so get it popping then. So yeah, you get the point, you get the example. So yeah, I just also want to share with you all that there is no right way to grieve. If I haven't explained that enough in this episode, then my God, let me just say it. There's no right way to grieve. There's no wrong way to grieve. Just keep you healthy. Just keep you stable. Just keep you afloat. And a lot of times when we lose a loved one in the physical presence, while in the midst of losing ourselves, we only have the capacity for upkeeping us. And so if you have kids, you have to let them know mommy's okay, but mommy needs space. If you have close friends that you're used to talking to every day, but now you're a little more distant, hey, I love y'all so much. I promise, I'm not ignoring you all. I'm just needing some time for me to reset. If you have a partner that is not really processing, your grief, then you can just try your best to be verbal and like, this was a glimpse of my day. this was a glimpse of something that kind of triggered me. And, you know, prayerfully, you have a partner that you can just sit down and talk and discuss it. And, you know, if that's what you choose to do, or be comfortable and just like, hey, I just need a day to say nothing. I just need a day to decompress and, you know, just pour into me. And sometimes it's not just one day. Sometimes not just one day. And so for the many days that you will continue grieving, give yourself grace. I'm still telling myself that. Extend yourself some grace. Especially if you are a busybody. Give yourself some love, give yourself some space, you know, and feed into you however way that you know best suits you, and find a new way that can serve you very well. Prayers up to anybody that is navigating grief at this time. And the best offering that I can close with is, you will get there faster by going as slow as you can. Yeah. And so my epiphany for this week, my epiphany for the week that has hugged me is, you are doing an extraordinary job of serving you, and you are doing an extraordinary job of befriending your grief. Thank you so much for tuning into Epiphany, episode 1, season 1. And I will see you guys next week. Make sure y'all subscribe, like, and share with someone who is in need of this content. And just send some love their way. See you guys.